What is up, everybody? This is the 2022 Downhill Season Review Pod. I'll have my buddy Josh come on in here in a second. We did a preseason preview pod about before the first round of Lourdes, and now this is the first round review. It's been over a month since that race, so we're kind of gonna catch back up on some things, and then we're talking about round two, which is at Fort William, also known as Fort Bill. A little bit of background about Josh, in case you haven't listened to him on this podcast before. He has been in the cycling world his whole life, BMX, done enduro, done downhill, and then a great reason I bring him on is that he was Dakota Norton's mechanic last season, so he has great insight for this race, for this podcast. So I'm glad he's welcome to come on and do it, and truly appreciate it. So let's get into it. All right, Josh. Hey, thanks for coming back on and doing a round one review, and we'll probably talk a little bit about Fort Bill. But so yeah, man, appreciate it. So we'll get into it a little bit. Yesterday I spent a little bit of the day kind of going back and watching some things and kind of taking some notes. Hang on one second. My cat wants to play with the screen.
Oh, nice.
But so I went back and we'll just kind of dive into it, looking at some of the highlights. So from just going from the men's first, Luca on that canyon, dude, he looks good already. He looks smooth on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything I've seen between the last race and now, he's don't think anything's been slowing him down. He looks healthy and fast.
Yeah. He finished like fifth at Lourdes, so that was a great start to the season for him for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then Vergier, he slid out like on the upper section, kind of just bumped him back. I think he finished 8th or 9th on the race. Dude's got so much speed. It's just that like it's almost if he just keeps it together through a full run.
Yeah, always a contender. Everyone knows that Vergier has a chance at winning the race.
Yeah.
Every time he gets between the tape, the dude has a chance of being the fastest on the clock. So
yeah, kind of like how we talked about Snowshoe. He's so fast, but he just kind of got in his own little head there at the very because there was so much on the line there.
Yeah. I don't think he'll make that mistake again. He had it and just. I mean, it looks like the nerves got to him. It's a hard course and the pressure's on, and 99% usually don't get it, no matter how fast you are. 100% is what it takes, and and just
do you think Lourdes was a little bit in his head because the French and all that stuff?
There's definitely a lot of hype whenever you're in your home country. You always want to go out for the home team and do well. But there's also a lot of pressure on the first race to just start off the season strong. Your riders that are like top 5 from the last year that come in protected and stuff like that, they can like risk it and try to like really get a good early season placement. But those riders that are like 12th through 25th or so, they're trying to stay protected or try to get protected. So that first race is about consistency for a lot of riders. For the home crowd and all of that, I'm sure that they were turning up the knob more so than a lot of the other riders that are just trying to worry about that top 20 placement. But it's weird too with it being 2 months before the race. This week at Fort Bill, that changes a lot between what people feel like doing. Kind of it's more of a test race in some ways to some than than anything. So.
Is it Collage?
Benoit? Yeah.
Dude was ripping.
Dude, he's fast. I think he's only going to climb on the results and rankings over the next few years.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that whole he's on Commissal too, right? Am I right?
Yep, he's a Commissal rider. Commissal, Dorval.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he's got him, Purion, and what's the guy? the dude that crashed out in snowshoe.
Capella.
DePrella.
Yep.
Yeah. So what a team. The team's
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah. Commensal's got a lot of fast riders on their bikes, scattered amongst the top 10, top 20.
Yeah.
They saturate the downhill market. They really come in heavy with putting a lot of teams on their bikes. It's just a move they've made, and all the industry knows it. And I don't think Max, the owner of Commensal, is shy about like kind of saying, "Yeah, I want everyone on my bike." And they're trying to do that. But there's a lot of fast riders putting it through the paces of the World Cup. You go to Europe and you see even more because there's a lot of privateers, local team kind of guys that are also riding them. So big impact from Commensal.
Yeah. And then as we were just talking, DePrella, he goes down hard in the upper, like a tree section kind of route. He got up kind of slow, but I think he's all right. But man, everyone kind of held my breath there for a second because you're like, man, this dude's so good. You don't want to see him out for the season already.
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah.
And then Pirion, he qualified third, and dude was just he even did a dab on the upper section, and he still was like a second and a half at the end. So like flying, just flying.
Yeah, absolutely. And he probably had that home crowd energy.
Yeah.
When it hits, it hits. So
yeah. Let me see what else I got here. So as you said, you text me as the race was going on. You were like, "Hey, your boy Finn, he's on a run." So he had a great race. So props to Finn, being second there.
Yeah. I think we had the conversation, last race about, I think you were like counting the days until he has his win, and it's looking close.
Yeah.
Some weekends Finn is on, and then some weekends, he might not be in the mix. But it seems like whenever Finn's on, he's on. He's either going to be on the podium or he's going to be like, just in the middle somewhere. Seems like.
Yeah.
So.
Or just loses it, I guess.
Yeah,
and
I think
then,
it's for sure.
Bruny qualified first. That's no surprise really to anybody, but he finished third on the podium. And this is just observation. I think he really wanted that win in front of the French crowd because even though he got third, you could tell there was a little bit there. Like he was a little bummed. He seemed.
Yeah, Loic is used to winning. He's very good. He wins a lot. It could have been one of those runs where he finished the race and knew he only gave it 96 when he should have just turned it on up to 100.
Yeah,
and that could have been the difference between him getting third and first. A lot of the times, in most racers can identify with having a race run where they cross the line at the bottom and they're like, I just didn't go hard enough. And that definitely could have been the feeling because once again, it's the first race of the season. There's a lot of nerves on the line with starting off good and like starting on a consistent foot, and putting that knob at just where it needs to be consistent and possibly get a win, or just turning it just a notch past there. It's kind of hard to tell. It's easy to know when you're riding on your absolute limit, but like the in between of that, between like way too slow and then like just right, is kind of hard to find sometimes.
How nervous were you first race last season?
Oh man, probably the most nervous of all season. Definitely the most nervous of all season. After the first race, the jitters are kind of shake
like,
out, and then it starts flowing after that.
Yeah, well, cool. Some notables that weren't really on the podium, but like we said, Luca was fifth, Danny Hart was sixth, Reese Wilson was seventh, Greenland eighth, Matt Walker 10th, Dakota 11th. He was up on the first for like a second for like a run or two.
Yeah.
Menard, like we said, Vergier 12th, Menard 16th, and then Gwynn 33rd. Anybody in those that didn't make the podium that you think comes back second round? I mean, you could pick anybody really, right?
Yeah, I mean, Fort Bill is a pretty crazy track. It's just massive blocks of basically concrete at the top, and then it opens up into a pretty fast wood section on the bottom.
Yeah.
it's really easy to get out of control on that track really quick. You see usually Red Bull has a pretty crazy like crash video reel of just people grenading themselves in a corner, breaking bumps, get deep, rocks pull out, things get hard to see. The weather changes like crazy. I mean, they're up on top of a Scottish Highland, so a rainstorm can just blow in and soak everything, and it change every single lap and make it hard to like get your settings dialed in because of that. So it's really hard to know until like time training and quali is like who's going to be on top this week. Um, it's I'll be interested to see. They've not been there in a few years, so I'll be interested to see like high pivot bikes. Are high pivot bikes going to have a big showing at this track, or are a non-high pivot bike going to still be equally in the mix like a lot of tracks? Because it's a very different track. Setup's going to be different. I know that some teams have been doing a little bit of testing at not Fort Bill necessarily, but other similar tracks to go ahead and try to beat that window and get some preseason or pre-race notes in for Fort Bill. So yeah, I actually don't have a prediction yet for this weekend without seeing time training. It's it's a really hard one to predict, probably more so than a lot of other tracks.
What was that one year that Gwyn literally got blown off the track? Well, it had to have been 18, I think. He literally just got tossed off the track. That was gnarly.
Yeah, and that's another thing is you could have the rider could have an awesome time training, could have an awesome qualities, but with the weather changing up there, it being super exposed, things could change. It could just be like 10 minutes of a bad storm rolling through and take them out of contention because of that, even though they were maybe set to be the fastest racer on the day if they'd got to go an hour earlier or later. That's another thing. The top 20 have about a 3.5 minute gap between when they start.
Dang.
So yeah, and that's for the TV. We don't see like that 1 minute and a half on Red Bull. Well, they do that and everything stays online because there's a 3.5 minute gap between the riders, roughly. Sometimes that's a little more, a little less, depending on the length of the track. But that's how they like patch all that stuff together and have the commentary and have the replays and have the right amount of track for, keeping a smooth broadcast. So that's a lot of time on top of the hill,
Yeah, for sure. Have you been up there?
I've not been to Fort Bill, no. I think it's probably my favorite World Cup to watch or see notes and stuff from. It's just so cool looking.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. Usually, like the photos and stuff that come out of it, it's awesome. Looks crazy. Looks out. It don't look like it's from like Earth almost. It looks like a foreign country compared to the rest of the World Cups.
Yeah, and it's crazy. It's almost like I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, the top half is so exposed, and then you just like drop into a forest. How it's like I don't know, just two different like elements there.
Yeah.
So I kind of went back to our. Well, I'll say this. I'll say Gwyn is better. This is just he's moved. He's got all his stuff now. I feel like he's settled in. All that weight's gone of whatever he had, and now he's like, all right, now I can focus.
I hope that's the case for him. He he made the move to Tennessee and training. I think the training's going to be better for him there. It's a lot more convenient. He's going to have Dakota to ride with amongst a handful of other Southeast locals. I'm anxious to see how the bike does there. This is still a relatively new prototype that the Intense team's running. And there's, assuming that there's a lot of adaptability, a lot of change of parts, like trying different rocker links or chainstay links or anything like that to just slightly tweak the geometry and your curve. I don't know if they're doing that specifically for this race, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're not playing with it. Maybe they're playing with different, maybe like 29. I'm not sure. That'll be interesting to see. I'm sure we'll see it in the pits things on Vital and all that. But I'm sure he's been trying to do as best he can to like figure it out at Windrock and stuff like that over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think high pivot? We were just having this discussion. High pivot's kind of like going to be the new way, or it's still kind of back and forth?
It probably depends on how broken up the track gets. When something's steep and like super like breaking bump and chundry, it looks like the high pivot usually performs better in that. Like it just plows right through it without like having a lot of pedal feedback or a lot of like braking issues from the movement. It, Fort Bill can definitely get busted up at the top. And it's just like concrete when those holes come out. Like that top section is just sand and concrete, for layman's terms. And the wood sections, I mean, it's still like normal dirt. When you get into the woods, it's like going from a freeway of just boulders to dirt, and that stuff can also get super blown out. It really will depend, and it could also be muddy when you're in the woods, and it could be like super ruddy and sloppy and hard to pedal through, and clear the big jumps that are coming towards the bottom and stuff like that. If it gets super rough, I could see the high pivot doing well, but if not, I'd say some of your old school geometries will still be in the mix. And at the same time, I don't know that all of the brands will switch to high pivot. I think that's just a fix for some brands. I don't think that's the golden solution that all bikes need to be. I think it's just a way to make a bike work. Quick and easy way to make a lot of design changes and make things work. But I don't think that's like the end all be all. So don't go out and buy a high pivot bike and expect that to be the thing of the future, because I don't think everybody's going to be on that.
Yeah, that's there's a bike shop here, and I talked to one of the guys that work there, and we're a little sidetracked here, but they rent a bike that's high pivot, and a lot of times people like it, but there is a few times people are like, I just don't care for it. So yeah,
and I don't know, like in your area, like if there's a lot of consistent like ways to test that, like big steep mountains, like you're not seeing high pivot XC bikes,
yeah,
so that's kind of like what you have to look at there, and you're probably not going to. You might see a little bit of modification, but not as drastic as a enduro bike or a downhill bike.
Yeah, good point. Your predictions on for round one, I went back and looked. I think you had hold on one second. You had Vergier kind of, but you kind of had a bunch of people, but you had Vergier and Deprilla. You felt like they would be on the podium. They both hit the dirt.
Yeah, they bombed, man. I guess I put too much pressure on them. I guess they got worried and they just cracked under pressure because of what I said.
Yeah. But yeah, and then I picked Pierre and Bruny, but then I didn't pick a third, so I don't know. Whatever. So yeah, we don't want to do predictions yet because we haven't seen time qualifying, so we can go into the women's here.
Mm-hmm.
So with the women's, we kind of talked about this before last race. There was like 5 women that kind of, no offense to the other women, just these 5 women are kind of like the ones that are probably going to be on the podium or right there at the whole time, and that's how it was. Except for we just didn't know if Rachel was going to race. That was basically the only thing we didn't know.
Right.
And then did she go by Blanche or Blanc?
Camilla Blanche.
Yeah.
I said I could be wrong on that, but
yeah,
something close.
She she won.
She finally got her win in.
Yeah. I'm still Valley is a Valley fan or what fan. I guess just since he's just a young ripper.
Yeah.
What about you? Is there any like women you root for over the other?
Well, speaking of Valley, I think that we could see Valley be the next Rachel. I think that she could be strong enough to be in a lot of victories for a while. She won races as soon as she came to the elite field, and of course she could have an injury or just lose the momentum and never win another race. But I could also see that being the next like superstar name in the women's field. And typically, and women's fields getting more competitive, but typically we see a lot of ultra dominating female racers in downhill. It's usually like there's one top rider. Miriam's kind of been it for the last few years, I guess you could say. And before that was Rachel, before her injury and baby and everything. And then back before that was Tracy Mosley. And it's just
Yeah.
like very like big consistent winners. So very wouldn't be surprised if Valley wasn't the next. As far as I think you got Tane, you got Miriam, you got Camilla, you got Valley. If Rachel's coming back at full steam, then you got Rachel. Those are always the ones that I think will be in the mix. I'm probably forgetting a couple there too.
Seagraves.
Yeah. Millie could come up pretty soon. She's right there usually like in that like 6th to 8th place. It seems like she's
Yeah.
right on the edge. I don't know. It's hard to predict sometimes the winner unless like Miriam's just like way out in front, and then it's just like, oh yeah, it's hers until something happens or whatever. But it's kind of hard to really have a pin on who might be the fastest because they're all right there in the mix. And it's usually coming down. Like I want to think that Snowshoe came down to the last race for the women as well.
Yeah.
Because crashed out, and then Valley got it by just a few points.
Yeah.
That double point last race makes a big difference. So yeah.
I meant to ask. I think since Snowshoe was a double header last year, how weird was it? Like the first race, it was kind of like no crowd almost, right?
Dude, you're going straight from race day straight into like a practice day, and like there's no like celebration hardly. It's just, well, no, tomorrow's another World Cup day. Here we go.
Oh man.
It is like, I guess it was in the middle of the week. Like that was like a Tuesday or something, maybe a Wednesday when the finals for the first race happened. So it's just real weird. Because, people are still working, being responsible and stuff. You don't have the crowd that you have for the Saturday, Sunday for finals day. So yeah, it was definitely a bit weird. I didn't necessarily enjoy the back-to-back weekend or week, I guess you could say. It'd been nice to have a couple more days in between. I think the riders and stuff would like that as well, but they gotta get the race done and get out of there.
Yeah.
Not suck up too much of the resources on the little mountain in West Virginia.
Have you ever been like there and like you guys need something any location like shipped in or anything, or do you always have everything? Have you ever been like, oh man, we need this now?
There's been some things that we've like had shipped in like to the hotel or to the house that we're staying at like before the race, like a week or two before. And, sometimes it's something as simple as like a kit for the riders, or some more tires, extra parts, small thing here or there. But we didn't have the issue of like not having something and going without. We were pretty stocked, and we were pretty like had what we needed and prepared accordingly. There's you could always like wish for more. You could always wish for like an extra like suspension testing system, and you could always wish for like never ending tires and all of the goodies that you could ever want. But yeah, we weren't ever like in a pinch really for having to go buy it off the shelf and you know drive across Europe to find one single part or anything like that. So yeah, some teams play. I mean, sometimes like you might have a super unfortunate something break, and then that'll put you in that spot. And there's a lot of teams that face that.
Yeah.
Especially if there's
really?
like prototypes and stuff like that involved, and a prototype breaks, and then two prototypes breaks because you only got one spare or something like that. Then that's a bad spot for a team. But we were lucky, and when I was on YT Mob last year, we didn't have any big hiccups like that.
All right, I'll go with I'll do a $5, not in any particular order for men's. I'll go Lori. I'll go Danny Harp, just because I just feel like he always does well there. I'll go Bruny, Greg Menard. I think I need one more. Okay, one more. And I'll go with Finn just because we're carrying on. We're just carrying it on.
Right. So Greg's definitely on my list. He's probably ridden that track more than anyone.
Yeah.
Even considering like the locals, probably he's rode it more than them. So Greg, I think Reese Wilson possibly.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
Loic, I definitely have to expect to do well there. I'm going to say Drapella.
That's my dang. Yeah, that's a good one.
And who do I want to put on the fifth? I love to give it to Dak or Luca.
I know, same.
Any of those guys, but man, this is a different track. And aside from Glenn, I don't know that Americans have historically done super well at Fort Bill. His streak, I think he did well, but aside from that, man, I don't know when the last time an American was on the box up there.
Has Dak even raced there when he was on other teams?
Yeah, he's raced there. I think he raced there on Da Vinci and Morpheus.
Okay.
Who do I want to put? This fifth one's the hardest, right? I'm gonna say Benoit.
Oh, okay.
He's a tall dude, and if those holes get deep, and some of those rocks are hard to pick up and around, tall dudes may do well here.
Yeah. Is it, man? I'm glad we're going back to Fort Bill. I mean, I know we were eventually, but it seems like forever ago since we were there. I think they were they locked down pretty well because of COVID. And
yeah,
it's so glad we're going back. That track is just so cool to watch.
Yeah, that's why Snowshoe had a double race last year, is because Fort Bill canceled.
Yeah,
they canceled in March, April. It wasn't too long before their race in May. They were going to be the season opener, I believe. Yeah, they were going to be the season opener, and then they just skipped that. Started with Leo Gang in June, and then had doubled Snowshoe shortly after that.
Well, cool, man. You got your Bluegrass Cup coming up?
We do have a Bluegrass Cup race. We got June 4th and 5th, Camelsville, and then after that, we've got Perry County Park in Hazard, Kentucky for the season finale.
All right.
C series.
So, how do if people want to sign up? Well, first, people should sign up. Go. Josh puts this on, so go do it.
Yeah.
And then how do they go sign up, or where do they go to?
BluegrassMountainCub.com. That's the best place for all the info about all of our races. Got a couple of trail running races, 2 more mountain bike XC races, and then we're working on some dates. The calendar's pretty full, but we're trying to work in some enduro races in the fall. So,
you are.
Yeah, we're excited to bring some enduro racing to Kentucky.
Yeah.
Love to do. So,
hey, I heard there's a place. I can't tell you the name of it. I have to text somebody, and I don't know if they would get back to me. But some good trails now just outside Kentucky side of Louisville. Like, I don't know what the place is called. Have you heard of this?
Fort Duffield. Yep.
Yeah. How is it?
Oh, man. So I raced there for the first time probably 10 or 11 years ago. And it was like the free ride place then. Like dudes with like 140 mil dirt jumper, 140 mil fork on a dirt jumper with like super beefy downhill wheels, 26ers, like indestructible bikes, like building jumps, doing some cool stuff, rough trails, free ridey, half of the wood that a feature would need built, kind of, cool stuff. And there's some downhill races there back in the day. It was like a minute and a half downhill, and it was super pedally because it's not that big of a hill for a downhill bike. After like a 130, 140 bike, this place rips. It's a ton of fun.
Really?
It's a quick shuttle or a quick pedal to the top. If you're on an e-bike, it's like a dream. And the guy that worked on O'Bannon and did a big project at O'Bannon, and I forget the name of his trail building company, so I'm sorry I can't shout him out. But he just came in and did a project there where he built a couple like flow lines, like one with some like cool rock features, like, build up stuff that you would see from like Bentonville area, very fabricated, landscaped kind of things.
Yeah.
and then I think a couple climb trails to make like things connect a little better in the park. And that's a super exciting advancement. It's actually not that far from me. It's like the southwest side of Louisville. So
Okay.
it's like hour of traffic for me. It's not that bad. I think we're going to try to have an enduro there. I haven't scoped out the new stuff yet, but we could have had an enduro before the new trails were there. So I think we're going to look to push for an enduro after the new trails settle in and we get some days figured out in the fall for when we can do that. The Louisville community's huge and they're super strong right now too in mountain biking. So I think it's a good thing for those trails, and there's more land out there to build on. So I think it's a good thing if you're in the Louisville area, Fort Duffield.
Yes, that's awesome to hear. Yeah, that's what we need.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, man. Yeah, my buddy said they rode there and they said they liked it, but I didn't even know the place existed. I didn't know it was around as long as you were saying it was been around.
Dude, it's been a classic, and it's been a hidden secret. A lot of locals know about it, and a lot of people have ridden mountain bikes in Kentucky for a long time and known about it. It's actually where I met Trevor Gay. So,
Okay.
a mutual friend of ours. That's where we met at a race there back, 10, 11 years ago. And the trails haven't changed much because they're so rocky and rooty. Like some of the same like classic trails are still the same classic trails with some of the same lines and everything like that. So that's always like nice and nostalgic whenever you have like these super cool chattery sections that are rough but they have flow to them. It's got a lot of that, and now it's got also like super smooth flow trail like the new school stuff. So it's good.
Heck yeah. So also, how's your fantasy season doing? We were talking about that.
Dude, so I made some bad last minute changes on my Peak Bike account, and I really regret it. Like I'm way in the back of the pack. I made some like let's like throw in some upset things in there, and like let's see how it goes. And I had Camilla in my team, and then I was like, I think I still saw time training. I was like, I don't know about this one, and swapped them for like different values to get another rider in there, and completely blew it. So yeah, I'm not winning the bike or whatever they're giving away this year. If they're giving away $1 million, I've definitely blown it. So, oh well.
Yeah, that's how I am with Supercross. I'll watch like qualifying. And I'm like, oh, that guy's no good. And then I swear some of those guys that know it notice like they're not putting around, but they're not like, oh, he's doing great. And then next thing you know, they're ripping at the main event. You're like, dude, what happened? But yeah.
Yeah, every time.
Yeah. Well, hey man, I appreciate it. Glad we could do this again. And looking forward to Fort Bill and talking about it later.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Well, you have a good night and good weekend.
All right. Cheers. Thanks, Justin.
See ya.